Welcome back to another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I am here with Robbie Bobby. What's up, dude?
Dude, we are here to tell the listeners what we have coming up. We are here to bring you the best fantasy football personalities from around the NFL to break down each squad for you, the viewers. We want you to win your league, and these are the guests that are going to bring you the insight that no one else will.
So stay tuned. We have 8 of these coming out for you guys, and enjoy the rest of the show. Now joining us to talk some Chicago Bears, we have the one and only Dave Kluge. I'm going to plug you right now, Dave. You can check him out on Twitter at Dave Kluge and find all of his work at the Football Guys website. He also just started a new podcast, the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show with Alfredo Brown. Congrats on the new pod and really happy for all of your success you're having this offseason, man.
Thank you. Yeah, this new show has been a ton of fun. I started doing the Launchpad a few years ago, and then Alfredo Brown was doing the Pretend GM, both shows that had guests on them. And when we brought my show over to Football Guys, we brought the Pretend GM over to Football Guys shortly after. So I would have Alfredo on as a guest. He'd have me on as a guest. And we started noticing, like, these shows are kind of fun when we do this together. So we just scrapped our own solo show, combined this into the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be doing this with Alfredo.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I checked out the first 2 episodes. Both are up live now as recording, but they are excellent. So definitely go check those out if you guys are obviously you're into fantasy football listening to us, but definitely go give those a listen, man. Those are fun.
Thank you.
I think there's definitely something to be said about, like, naturally we'll get on. We switch it up. There's 6 of us, so we switch it up quite a bit between like who's working with who. And not only is there like different chemistries, but sometimes you just know and it's clicking well. You guys are bouncing back and forth. It's like more of a conversation, less like, stats. It works. It's some of those things where you have chemistry with that.
Yeah, a lot of people, can talk about football, but it's having that like camaraderie and the connection with your co-host that's palpable. And like people can feel that when they're watching a show. And, Alfredo and I are lucky to be friends and lucky to be able to do this show together.
Nice.
I love it, man.
Yeah,
awesome. I give Rob, like, I feel like I say it on this show quite a bit. Rob is like right here. And I don't mean to make this about the Dad Bod crew, but I have to say that Rob is always like right here and he's steady Eddie all the time. So I'm always just trying to get a rise out of him. We've known each other since college days. So he knows me as well. And I can never trigger him. I've tried for years now. We're going on 11 years.
And the funny part,
13
as you say this, there was one episode this season, that really, he got under my skin pretty good. Pretty good. Who are you talking about, Mario?
I don't know, dude.
DJ Moore. DJ Moore. So it's only
such a
fitting.
good transition.
It's only fitting that we bring Dave Kluge on to talk his hometown Chicago Bears.
Perfect.
So great transition, Rob. That deserves a medal. We had the Chicago Bears had some major departures this year. Sorry if you guys hear my dog. David Montgomery is gone, but they added a ton of weapons. DJ Moore being one of them. Nate Davis, Darnell Wright, Dante Foreman, Roshan Johnson. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Rob. You had a couple questions here for Dave, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest question, right, with all these additions, they're only really losing David Montgomery. How big of a step forward can this team make? What's your expectations? Obviously, it's your hometown team. Like you're bleeding for them. So what are you expecting out of this team?
Well, first of all, the disrespect to Amir Smith-Marset and N'Keal Harry and all of these other departures. Completely kidding. Last year was terrible. Yeah. Terrible.
We forgot.
And even losing David Montgomery, I think that bringing in Roshan Johnson and Deonta Foreman, especially when you look at the contracts, is more of a win than anything else. So I'm really happy with their offseason moves. But yeah, I mean, last year, I think that was like worst case scenario, not just for Justin Fields, but for any quarterback. Like I can't imagine a single quarterback, maybe Patrick Mahomes, would succeed in that environment. But first year head coach, first year general manager. This was the first year that Justin Fields was the week 1 starter. You got to remember, as a rookie, he was splitting starts and splitting snaps and getting yo-yoed on and off the bench with Andy Dalton. So this is the year that they have finally built a competent offense around him. A lot of fantasy football people don't really take notice of offensive line moves and those sorts of things. But for them to be able to trade back from 1 and turn that number 1 overall pick into DJ Moore and Darnell Wright, and then they even got some extra picks on top of that, one of which was Roschon Johnson. I mean, Ryan Poles did an incredible job using that 101 pick for leverage, but now got a really good offensive line. I mean, the offensive line wasn't as bad as people think last year. They just had two weaknesses that would let a lot of pass rushers through, and they addressed both of those. So now he's got a better offensive line. Went from last year, the target leader was Cole Kmet. Now, realistically, if you start looking at projections, Cole Kmet's probably the fourth or fifth passing weapon on this team. So they brought in Chase Claypool midseason, and, he really didn't do too much, but that was, getting plugged in the middle of the season.
Mid-season.
Yeah, and they also expected him to just be the immediate wide receiver one, and I don't think that that's what he is. So I'm really proud of the Bears for not just buying into the sunk costs and saying, well, we already invested this pick in Chase Claypool. We got to see it through to the end. They said, well, Chase Claypool might not be the number one. Let's go out and get DJ Moore. So he had DJ Moore. He got Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney fighting for that wide receiver 2 position. And then Robert Tonyan, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he is great as a pass catcher. They're already talking about him being the vertical threat that's going to open up the offense. So that leaves Cole Kmet now, who was their number one pass catcher last year, as like the fourth or fifth option. So they've done a great job of surrounding Justin Fields with the pass catching support that he needs, the pass blocking support that he needs, and some really good guys out of the backfield. So we saw the floor last year, and that was giving us consistent top 5 quarterback finishes from Fields. I think this year we see him take a step forward in just about every aspect.
Yeah, that's a great kind of segue into what I had next was Justin Fields. You kind of hit it on the head where they bring in Nate Davis. They trade back at Darnell Wright, kind of shore up that offensive line. That was the big question mark kind of coming into this season for Justin Fields. Can this offensive line kind of hold up enough for us as fantasy football community, as the NFL community? Can this offensive line hold up enough for us to see what Justin Fields can do passing the ball, right? So do you expect, how big of a jump forward do you expect? Are there any rumors coming out of camp? How's he looking throwing the ball? Do you think he's going to be, I mean, he said it himself. He wants to be the first 4,000 yard passer in Bears history. Can he be a 4,000, 1,000 kind of guy?
I don't know about 4,000, 1,000.
That'd be crazy.
That would be crazy, and I'd like to see it. But I think a big misconception is like Justin Fields wasn't drafted to be a rushing quarterback. He's not a Jalen Hurts. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He was a pocket passer in college. And then, I talked about it a little bit earlier too. The Bears offensive line last year wasn't as bad as a lot of people think. I mean, they weren't great. That's not what I'm saying. But the issue wasn't that the offensive line was breaking down on every single play. It's that Justin Fields would drop back. He'd go through his reads, and every single wide receiver was blanketed by defenders. Like his guys were unable to get open. Mm-hmm. So now that we just see a slight uptick in the offensive line, which should help him out. But the biggest change to this offense is going to be having a guy like DJ Moore that can be that outlet, that's going to be open on almost every single play, that can win at every level of the field. He can run a bubble screen. He could also run a 9 route and get open 50 yards downfield to connect on a deep ball. So I think that's the biggest difference here. Justin Fields showcased what he could do as a rusher over the last couple of years. And because of that, it is going to completely change how defenses are going to have to play against Justin Fields. But I think that we see him go back to the quarterback we saw at Ohio State, where he's comfortable in the pocket, going through his reads, hitting those receivers downfield. So, 4,000 yards is a lofty goal. I think we can see it, maybe not this year. I think at some point in his career, we do see Justin Fields throw for 4,000 yards, but it wouldn't surprise me all that much if he can take a step that big going into this year.
I think as Rob was saying, now I can't even remember if it was pre-show or on. It was on air, actually.
It was on air.
I am the avid DJ Moore hater. I like the guy. I like the player. I just always, for fantasy, I'm always a notorious hater on DJ Moore. And combine that with a rushing QB, and I tend to look at it and I'm like, what's the ceiling? What's the potential ceiling here? And like you've mentioned, there's a lot of weapons on here. I don't know if Justin Fields is going to hyper-focus target on DJ Moore or not. There's a lot of weapons.
So Ryan Poles has been very open in what his plan was with DJ Moore, and he said that he wanted to do it last year before they traded for Claypool. He said, we have seen the best way to develop a young quarterback is to get him a wide receiver 1. And following the blueprint that we saw with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and that we saw with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I mean, we see all of these teams starting to do this now when they have a young, raw quarterback, and every single one of those teams up their pass rates significantly the year after trading for wide receiver 1. So The other thing is, last year, the offense wasn't fully acclimated until about week 6. I mean, that offense they were running through the first 5 weeks was like a high school offense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so you can just kind of throw those out the window. So I think that we see, from week 6 onward, there was an uptick in pass rate. It was still well below league average, but I think this year they're a little bit closer to league average, and they're going to throw the ball a lot more than they have over the last couple of years.
That's awesome. I'm going to kind of flip it on here and take you a different way here, because I am most curious about this because I have a super favorite in this backfield. What are your thoughts on Chicago's backfield? Like, what are you thinking? Who emerges? Who's fantasy relevant? Who can win leagues? So you don't have to answer all 3 of those, but just like in that regard.
Yeah, so, peek behind the curtain, we're recording the show on July 25th, so there have only been a few days of Bears camp, so we're not getting a lot of smoke out of camp right now, but looking at the profiles, Roschon Johnson is the guy that I prefer, and it's such a chalky fantasy take to say I like the rookie, but that's kind of where I'm leaning, and I like Khalil Herbert, and if you look at all of his nerd metrics, the rushing yards over expectation and all that stuff, he blew it out of the water last year. But Khalil Herbert was drafted by a different GM for a different head coach. And even last year, when Khalil Herbert was smashing in all of those efficiency metrics, this coaching staff still preferred David Montgomery, and they wouldn't really lengthen the leash for Khalil Herbert. So for them to go out this year and spend a 4th-round pick on Roschon Johnson and bring in Deonta Foreman, it concerns me that the coaching staff isn't all that sold on Khalil Herbert. And the other thing, if you look at both Herbert and Foreman, neither of them catch a lot of passes, and neither of them are good pass blockers. You could make the argument that Roschon Johnson was the best pass blocking running back in this entire draft class. So he's going to have a stranglehold on the passing down work in Chicago. So even though I think Khalil Herbert is a fantastic pure runner, he might be relegated to that like in between the 20s role, not getting a lot of goal line work, not getting a lot of passing down work. So I think Roschon Johnson happens to be a little bit cheaper in drafts, and I think he also has the highest ceiling of the bunch.
I love it, dude. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has been pulling me towards Roschon too, is Khalil Herbert is, I would say, even more so, though, the absolute worst at pass block between those 3 guys. And it does open up an opportunity for Roschon to make early impacting plays from either dump offs or being open in general in the field. So I love it. Robbie, did you have any questions on DJ Moore?
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, he has been one of my guys for the past couple of years. Obviously, a little disappointed with what's been going on in Carolina. Now he's coming over to the Bears. You kind of hit on it, Dave. All these teams are doing the same blueprint that we've seen over and over. You got a young, up-and-coming quarterback. Let's get him a wide receiver 1. DJ Moore, to me, is a clear wide receiver 1. Now, do we think that we'll see some sort of replication like we did last year in Philly with A.J. Brown? Do you think DJ Moore can kind of take that step forward in this Bears offense with a similar type of rushing quarterback as Jalen Hurts is? Can DJ Moore produce how A.J. Brown did? Or is that kind of too lofty of a goal for us?
I mean, I think A.J. Brown is probably the best of the bunch. I mean, unless you want to go way back to like the Cardinals with DeAndre Hopkins, but by the time they brought Hopkins in, he was already like a 7-year vet and had like 1,500-yard seasons and, produced with Matt Schaub and Brock Osweiler. Like he had already proven himself, but I think that we just forget, like, people in fantasy football have such short memories. Stephon Diggs wasn't a world beater in Minnesota, and A.J. Brown wasn't a world beater in Tennessee. They kind of had very similar stories to DJ Moore. Like, yeah, we know they're good football players, but this offense is holding them back. And if you look at the per game averages, DJ Moore averaged more yards per game in Carolina than Stephon Diggs averaged in Minnesota. DJ Moore also averaged more receptions per game than A.J. Brown did in Tennessee. So he has the profile of a guy that is set to explode. Now he's the unquestioned wide receiver 1. The team has made a huge investment in bringing him in. I expect them to up their pass rate. So, I really try not to sound like a homer. Last year I was predicting the Bears were going to win 3 games. I didn't think they were going to be a good team, but I said that Justin Fields was going to rush for 1,000 yards. And it sounded ludicrous at the time. And
it sure did. That's a great call, dude.
Yeah, you want to look at some fun quote tweets. I'll send you that tweet after we're done recording here, and you can read through the replies and quote tweets.
That's awesome.
Justin Fields would rush for 1,000 yards. And
yeah, because he hasn't shown that. Like, he's shown rushing ability. Don't get me wrong, but 1,000 yards is a bold and great call by you.
It was a
Hard to
bold one
do
last
it.
year, and I caught a lot of flack for it. But this year, I have the Bears projected for 10 wins, and that's not the guy I am. Like, I'm not an overly optimistic fan, but Justin Fields showed so many flashes last year, and now they have surrounded him with the supporting cast. I think that DJ Moore takes that huge step forward as a wide receiver one, and it's such a cheap stack you can get. When you look at like the elite quarterbacks in drafts right now, he's going after all of them. It's Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, and Lamar Jackson, and then you can get Justin Fields. And the way it works out with ADP too, it's always at that like 5-6 turn where you can just double tap Justin Fields and DJ Moore. I did it in Scott Fishbowl. I did it in Lightning Round. I do it in a ton of my underdog drafts. I am viciously attacking that stack in drafts this year.
That's awesome, and that's what I love to hear.
Yeah,
Because music to my ears, Dave.
Yeah,
sorry, Mario.
It's all right. It's all right. I think you're selling me on certain points. It's things that Rob didn't have the skills and the pieces to sell. No, I'm kidding.
He just
but
hates
you
to
are.
Listen to me. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. Rob, and give to Rob's props. He did try to sell me on Amon-Ra last season, and I kept denying, and I ate crow for that. So
I just tweeted this morning that I was an idiot for fading Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm not making the same mistake again.
I ain't either, but Rob's out now, and I don't understand.
I'm out at ADP now.
Hey, man, when ADPs change, so should your player takes.
I hit that wave, and I rode that wave all last year.
I did the same thing. Deebo Samuel in 2021 was like my flag plan, and then I nailed the Deebo Samuel call, and then the next year I was like, you guys are crazy, drafting this guy as wide receiver one.
We had a whole article about Deebo last season because we were nervous about him as well. I do have a couple more questions here, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Is there any other Bears offensive weapons you want people to keep an eye on? I know you mentioned Robert Tonyan. In a fantasy regard, is he somebody to keep an eye on, or anybody else on this team?
Not really. And that's the thing. I think this is going to be a pretty hyper funneled offense. If Justin Fields throws for 4,000 yards, that changes things dramatically. But that is like the super high end range of outcomes. And I don't recommend betting on that. So for me, I'll sprinkle in a little bit of Khalil Herbert here, because if you're looking at straight projections, he does project to be the lead back there. But the three guys that I am actively targeting are Justin Fields, DJ Moore, and Roschon Johnson. Outside of that, Darnell Mooney has shown some exciting peripherals throughout his career, but that was as the unquestioned number one wide receiver. Now we don't even know if he's going to beat out Chase Claypool. I think he's a decent best ball target because he does have that long speed and he can catch the big passes and make the big plays, but he's not going to be seeing the target volume that you're going to feel comfortable starting him in with every single week. Chase Claypool is another guy that, I hated the trade at the time. It hasn't really seemed like it's gotten any better since then. A lot of people in Chicago are holding on to hope that Chase Claypool could take that step forward, but I'm not really sold on it. And then you look at Cole Kmet. Last year, he led the team in targets. And like I said, this year, he's probably going to be the fourth or fifth option. And even while leading the team in targets, he was still putting up back-end tight end one numbers. Now he has better wide receivers to compete against, and he has Robert Tonyan in the mix. So I think that we see Cole Kmet blocking a lot more this year, while Robert Tonyan comes in to run more routes. And while it might sound like I'm trying to sell Robert Tonyan, I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant either. I think it's going to be a frustrating split there.
Either.
Yeah. So
for me, go ahead. Sorry, but who do you view as
for me? It's Fields, DJ Moore, and Roschon Johnson are the only guys that I'm like actively targeting.
So do you think DJ Moore is going to be that red zone target?
And that could go a lot of different ways. I think the main red zone weapon, not target, notice the change of word there, the main red zone weapon is going to be Justin Fields, who can do it with his legs. And we're going to see a lot more of that. Wouldn't surprise me if a lot of teams start adopting the tush push that we saw last year. And as that strength in his legs, he could push his way through as well. Cole Kmet, he doesn't have strong hands, for being such a big guy. Like, he is so weak at the catch point. And it's the same thing with Chase Claypool. Like, when you look at Chase Claypool, like the 6'3", like Greek god, you'd think that he would be good at contested catches, and he's terrible at them. Funny enough, DJ Moore, who like isn't that big of a guy, kind of on the smallish side for a wide receiver, is amazing at high pointing balls and great at contested catches. So even though he's like one of the smallest of the bunch, I think he profiles to be the red zone target there. But we're going to see a lot of scrambling near the red zone where Justin Fields is just unstoppable.
Yeah, 100%. And then I have one last one, and then we'll get you out of here, Dave. We know you got a lot going on, but who are your flag plant players of this season, regardless of teams? Who are the guys you're trying to draft the most in your fantasy football leagues?
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
Regardless of teams, the guy that I find myself drafting more than almost anybody, I was just checking my underdog exposure this morning, is Marquise Brown. And Marquise Brown was a guy who was a
Oh,
ticking time bomb during his entire career in Baltimore, and he was held back by a terrible offense. And, we saw like the per route run metrics were off the charts, and we were just waiting for him to end up in a different team or in a different offensive system or whatever it may be. And then that happened last year. He got traded to Arizona and Cliff Kingsbury, and he had that connection with Kyler Murray dating back to college. And during the first 6 weeks, with no DeAndre Hopkins and a healthy Kyler Murray, he pulled 10.7 targets per game. He was the wide receiver 5 in PPR scoring. And right now, I understand why there's a discount on Marquise Brown, because we don't know if and when Kyler Murray is going to come back. But Kyler Murray will come back at some point. He doesn't have the same scrambling abilities that he had in years past, because he'll be coming off the ACL tear, which means that Marquise Brown sits atop the depth chart. Once again, there's no DeAndre Hopkins there. He's going to be fighting against Michael Wilson and Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch for targets. So we're going to see him go right back into that 10, 11, 12 target per game role. And it's going to be late in the season when those games matter a ton. So right now you can draft Marquise Brown as a wide receiver 3. And the idea, at least what I'm hoping for, is that by the time fantasy football playoffs roll around, he's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers again.
That's a great point. That's a great point about Kyler not running.
Yeah, I mean, you hear that on Twitter all the time. You hear people say, hey, Kyler's not going to have the same scrambling. We've seen this with ACL tears the next year. Then there's the counterpoint that people have been trying to say, like, look at all the quarterbacks that have came back from their ACL and have been QB1, QB5, whatever. And then the counter back to that is, well, they're not scrambling, though. They're not scrambling quarterbacks. So if Kyler is going to come back and throw just fine, that is a great point. And it's like an unnecessary discount to Hollywood Brown, especially with no D-Hop there.
And a lot of Kyler's fantasy production comes from his scrambling, but he's one of the best passers in the league. Like, his arm talent is off the charts. So it might hurt his fantasy production a little bit with his inability to scramble, but it is going to help the pass catchers in Arizona when he's forced to stand in the pocket.
Almost should bump him.
Yeah. 100%. That's a great call, Dave.
38% of my underdog drafts right now have Marquise Brown on them. And then what happens is I end up like sitting in round 14 and I'm like, well, I guess I need Kyler Murray too. So
stacking them. Stack.
I love it.
Well, Dave, dude, we honestly truly appreciate you hopping on with us once again this season, man. You're amazing. You're crushing it. You're always super kind to us. So we appreciate you. If you want to, if outside of what we plugged for you earlier, if you want to let the people know where they can find you and what you have coming up, please, platform is yours.
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. I'm tweeting all sorts of nonsense there, but you could also see all of the guest spots and podcasts and videos and all that fun stuff I do. So at Dave Kluge.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and good luck to your Bears this year.
Thanks, guys.
Now let's welcome in Lauren Carpenter. You can find her on Twitter at Stepmom Lauren. She's one of our favorite fantasy football analysts. She's over at the FTN Fantasy Network, and she is also an FSWA member, which I think is super awesome. We had the chance to meet her last year at the Expo, and we hit it off. We really enjoyed her time last year. Lauren, what's going on since the last time we've seen you?
Yeah, it's so many things. It's nuts. I cannot believe you blink and this is the Super Bowl, and then you blink maybe twice more, and then it's suddenly draft season, and we are right around the corner from football again. It's amazing how the time flies. But yeah, just grinding it out. Some new things going on this season, which have been really fun. And we're building a house this year too, which is also stressful, but very exciting.
Yeah. For sure. I know, like you said, I can't believe it's been a year almost to the date of last year's Expo. So that's coming up next week, a week and a half. But we are here to talk about the Detroit Lions with Lauren today. We're super excited for this topic, one of my favorite teams to cover. We have some major departures with Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, DJ Chark, a couple additions, David Montgomery, Marvin Jones, and then obviously the rookies, Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. I always ask this when we start this off. What are your expectations for the Detroit Lions this season?
With the departure of Aaron Rodgers, I expect the Lions to win this division. I really do. That may be a little spicy and in fuego for some people, but you just got to get through Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, which of course is no easy task. But what the Lions have been able to do, I mean, cultural wise, right? Their entire identity has completely changed under Dan Campbell. I loved Hard Knocks. I just fell even more in love with Jamal Williams and Dan Campbell, which I know, which breaks my heart that he is no longer on the team. I'm a huge Jamal Williams fan. So was my husband. He was brokenhearted. Peek behind the curtain. My husband is from the Detroit area, so he is a Lions fan. So I guess this is like my Homer episode, like by proxy. Yeah. I'm from St. Louis.
That's awesome.
And my team divorced me to go back to its second wife. So I'm a hateful, bitter biatch when it comes to the Rams. So I'm all about the Lions. So if this is my by proxy team, I'm in. I'm ready to go. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for what the Lions can bring. They have just gotten better and better each offseason. I love what they did in the draft, and they made some smart moves as well. So I think I want to say they're going to surprise people, but I feel most people are actually on board with the Lions this season instead of them being the usual laughingstock.
There's so many things that you said there that are just, I mean, perfect for what we're talking about today.
I mean, I know, because I am perfect, Mario.
Flip it like but like Aaron Rodgers leaving, it opens up a big hole in this division. You have Kirk Cousins, which all you really need to do is put him in prime time. And then, I mean, like the Lions are smooth sailing from there. And Hard Knocks, Jamal Williams, perfect combo. Now we're going to have to watch Aaron Rodgers. So it may be a little less than perfect. Anyways,
I'm excited.
I'm excited to watch his odd ballness. Yeah. Jared Goff had a great season last year, finishing QB 10. The boys and I were talking. No, God, there it is. See, this is why our email still says the boys. The rest of the crew and I were talking about his upside being QB 8. So it's his second year in this offense. Do you think he can take another step forward, or do we see the best of Goff last year? Is this his third year, Rob?
I do think we can see a step in the right direction. I still think that he can finish as a top 10 QB. If you notice where he was in his third year, because we're talking about this third year kind of situation that we got going. In 2017, he did finish as the QB 6 for the Rams, which was very exciting for him. I think no matter how you break it down, Jared Goff is very vanilla, but he's more like vanilla bean. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, or like maybe home style vanilla bean, you know, he's still vanilla, but there is something a little special that he can throw in there a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You know, I was going to say creamy delicious, but this is a family show, so I won't.
Is he Kirk Cousins with swag? Is that what he is?
He's Kirk Cousins with, but Kirk Cousins can have some swag too. He's more of the guy that shops at like Hot Topic and J. Crew, as opposed to like structure, where I think Kirk Cousins likes to go, LLB, or like Kohl's. You know, he's more Kohl's of like, right? Like Kirk Cousins is more Kohl's. I feel like Jared Goff is a little bit more J. Crew. Same kind of look, but just a slightly different scenario there. We're not doing anything nuts like the Hot Topic thing, which is what I meant to say, but it came out like you shopped at both. Just ignore me. So I do think that he has the opportunity. He finished as a QB 10 last year, which was wonderful considering how many people just poo-pooed all over the Lions and, it's the Lions and, it's just Jared Goff. He is really, really good. Jared Goff is really good at sustaining multiple wide receivers and sustaining multiple fantasy options, which makes him such a good fantasy quarterback. Maybe not necessarily, you know, explosive fireworks for real football, but that's not what we're in this for. We're in this for fantasy. So I do believe that he can definitely finish as good as top 10 or QB 10, if not better, with another year in the system under his belt. I don't know what was going on with DeAndre Swift, but I think that may have been a holdup maybe for that offense. But adding Jahmyr Gibbs and then a veteran like David Montgomery, I just think kind of surrounds Jared Goff with really good pieces.
Yeah, perfect segue. You brought up Monty and Jahmyr Gibbs. Monty is going ADP right around RB24. Jahmyr Gibbs is going at RB12 right now off the board. Are you in on one of these at cost, or are you kind of just playing it by ear as the board falls to you?
You know, I usually like to always go for the RB2 in these kind of committee backfields, mostly because I just find that it's a little too expensive for the quote RB1A, if you will, because then the RB1B, because that's how I like to describe it when you're talking about a committee, is generally going a lot later. But in this particular circumstance, according to Sleeper, I believe Jahmyr Gibbs is going towards the beginning of the 4th round. That's okay with me because they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs and completely got rid of DeAndre Swift. That says something to me. And they brought in a veteran like David Montgomery instead of some super shiny young new toy. And I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a situation where it's a perfect 50-50 split. I think we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs be that explosive player that we've loved. So I have no problem taking Jahmyr Gibbs in the 4th, especially when you're starting to enter that weird RB dead zone where it's like, where did all the RB1s go? This is a weird year because you can get RB1 potential or just the straight up RB1s in offenses from the 4th to the 6th round. It's a weird season this year because a lot of people are going after those alpha wide receivers early, which I find fascinating. But I have no problem taking Jahmyr Gibbs. And if I miss out on Gibbs, which I hope I don't, I also don't have a problem taking David Montgomery where he's going either.
Yeah, I love that. We just did a mock the other night, last Thursday on the podcast. I ended up taking Jahmyr Gibbs at the end of the 3rd. Like
and then 3rd, early 4th.
Comfortable with it.
Yep, that's perfect. I am too. 100% good with that. He starts creeping up any higher than that, like if those stupid hype videos keep coming out on the X machine or whatever it's freaking called nowadays, I don't know. Like just because the boy is running in slow motion past his head coach does not mean he's a 1st round draft pick for your fantasy squads. Leave him where he is, please.
I was just going to say that if that ADP creeps up, which it could with these rookies, we see it every year.
And I'm usually not a rookie lover here, but for Gibbs, I am.
Yeah, I love that.
We have had so many discussions about how different this year is in so many ways, drafting being one of them. The ADPs are all a little bit odd. We see in wide receivers up earlier and then running backs about, I think on average, about 2 rounds behind of what we're normally seeing them. But so with this jump, we see guys like Amon-Ra, who he's coming off the board at round wide receiver 9. This is actually like the end of the 1st round, early 2nd. So it really makes him like your first wide receiver that you're drafting. Do you think he continues that tear or like, do you think he regresses? He finished as wide receiver 7 last year. So do you think he can finish there again or do you think he regresses some?
I think there's a possibility for that regression. That was such an explosive season that young man had. And I want to err on the side of caution and say I think he may regress a little, but I still think he's going to be top 10. But knowing what I know, like we're best friends, we're not. But just from what I've heard and what I've read about him and what I've heard him say himself, he meaning Amon-Ra St. Brown, it would not surprise me if this young man finishes top 5. So I think it's fair where he's going. I watched an interview with him. He rattled off in order by name and by school who was drafted ahead of him in the draft.
Oh yeah,
every single player. And it blew my mind. This young man is playing with a chip on his shoulder that his father placed on him when he was about 4. His dad is a 2-time Mr. Universe, by the way. You want to talk about pressure. And this kid always steps up to the plate, and he is just talented and explosive. I think the only thing that could get in his way is going to be injury related, and especially with Jameson Williams' suspension. I think that may, quote, hamper him, but he did just fine without Jameson Williams last year. So I really can see Amon-Ra St. Brown having another really explosive season. And I think if he does regress, like I mentioned already, top 10.
Yeah. Lauren, I love that. I love what you just said. He plays with that chip on his shoulder. We've seen it. He talks about it openly.
Jacked. He is jacked.
He is. Yes, he is.
You
and
see
his dad.
him.
Oh my God. And his dad, just real quick sidebar. His dad was like, oh, you're stopping for water. You're taking a water break. I'm like, he just lifted 35,000 pounds. Let the man hydrate.
I love seeing those videos because I think I saw the same one that you did. Him, his brother.
They're in Hard Knocks too, right?
As well. Yeah. It was something. I mean, it was super eye-opening. You see it seems like some of those players, you know, when they get that chip on their shoulder, they really take it to heart and they outwork everybody else. And it seems like Amon's in that category. That's why I was super
I love that. Those are the guys I want in fantasy every time, like the ones that are just grinding it out.
Exactly. Because, you know, unforeseen or poor circumstances mean nothing to these players who are just like, I don't care if I have 4 toes and 1 arm. I'm going out there.
Let's go with yeah.
Sorry.
No, I love that. I love that. And you did bring up the Jameson Williams suspension. It's something to kind of hit on. So he's out for the first 6 games of the season. How do you see the Lions kind of navigating those first 6 weeks, and who kind of takes a step forward in this offense as a beneficiary of that?
Honestly, I think the biggest beneficiary here is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think they're going to treat it exactly like they treated his injury. I don't find this situation to be any different than it has been in the past. It's just unfortunate. That this rule exists, like, really? Because he was just, like, inside of a boundary? He can't, like, play. Yeah. And then second,
and it wasn't
what were you
right?
thinking? And, like, what were you thinking, Jameson? You know the rules. Stop it. Is it? Did I say Jameson? Jameson. I don't know. Jameson. Jay. Sir Williams. That's
Jay
what I'm
Williams.
calling you.
Jay
Williams. Like, come on. You knew better than that, too. The whole thing is just ridiculously silly. Like, NFL players can beat the crap out of their wives and they get suspended for 2 games. He does a little bit of gambling 2 feet in the wrong direction and he gets suspended 6 games. Come on. Let's get these priorities fixed here a little bit.
But they advertise everything. Like, isn't the stadium FanDuel Stadium or something like that?
I know. And that's neither here nor there. That's a very exaggerated example. But the whole thing is unfortunate. But I think they're going to be able to navigate this the exact same way that they did when he was hurt. It just is unfortunate that he can't be on the field a little bit sooner. But I think the primary beneficiary here is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Sam Laporta better step up. And rookie tight ends do not generally do well in the NFL. Sam Laporta falls into one of those different categories where he has the potential to start high early, but he really needs to prove himself to help that offense out, especially Jared Goff, without the pass catching option with DeAndre Swift there to kind of help out a little bit. So Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have to step up there as well. And David Montgomery is going to have to, act like he can catch football. I'm sorry, Adam Brink. Yes, I know he can catch the ball, but like, that's not really his
style.
Yeah.
It's not really what he does.
I think you bring up a good point, bringing up some of these pass catchers. Obviously, Gibbs is going to be catching a ton. But I think the one big, because it seems like it makes sense to take him here. Like Sam Laporta, you mentioned him. He's really exciting rookie tight end. He went to Iowa. We've seen greatness come out of Iowa with Kittle.
Tight end University, yeah.
Yeah, Fant, Hawkinson. And I guess you could say Fant is the one that we're still waiting on. But he should have immediate role in this passing attack, at least immediate sort of set volume, I guess we'll say. But again, the track record with rookie tight ends, are you willing to gamble on him this season? I think he goes right around tight end 22. No.
Quick no.
Nope,
that is a quick no.
I think for real football, he's going to be an integral part of that, but I don't see his volume being nearly enough for me to want to draft him because it's tough. It's tough with the quarterback and with the tight end position. If you want to draft 2 tight ends, I don't mind taking a flyer on Sam Laporta in that situation, but he's not going to be my starter. And if he really does explode and get awesome, better than my starter, then I'm going to have to trade off my other tight end, or I'm just going to trade him off again. So I don't really see him as my starter this year, but I'm very excited to see what he can do in his rookie year for the 2024 season as we move forward. But I'm not big on rookies, especially pass catching rookies like the tight end position and the wide receivers. It's just very difficult to transition from college to the NFL. I think the step is a little bit smoother for the running back position, but not so much, I think, for quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. So I am not myself going to have any shares of Laporta Dynasty. Obviously, not even a question. If you are in like a really deep leagues, then sure, you probably take a shot at him. But for me, no, not this year. I'm not in on Sam Laporta.
Yeah, I love what you just said. The track record's just not there. Doesn't make sense really to risk it. If you get one of those really good tight ends, you could just wait and pick somebody up off waivers.
Yeah,
I'm always like, let's make history, Sam Laporta. Your tight end 1 for me.
He wants that. He wants that.
Yeah. Big gamble.
Before we end this Detroit Lions talk, are there any other options on this offense that you are interested in for the 23 season?
I mean, I really like Jared Goff. I think that he's a solid late round quarterback you can get that has very high upside. What is his ADP right now? I don't have that pulled up.
I want to say QB 14.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm looking at Sleeper, and he's going as late as the 11th round in regular single QB leagues. I mean, that's a really, really good value. So I definitely like Jared Goff. I obviously am going to be targeting Jahmyr Gibbs. If I miss out on Gibbs and the value is good enough, I'm very good with David Montgomery. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a smash draft if you can. I also don't want to have too many Lions on my teams. Remember, that is for anyone new to fantasy football who may be listening to this. You don't want to have too many players from the same team. Just remember bye weeks. Diversify your portfolio. But yeah, I think that's about where I'm at. There is the running back, quarterback, and Amon-Ra St. Brown as the wide receiver. I do like how they added Marvin Jones though. Throwback.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think Sleeper just posted a tweet about Marvin Jones. They're like, guess this player. And it was like his last couple of games. He went absolutely berserk with Detroit.
He will. He'll have like 3 games where he scores like 3,000 fantasy points. And then you'll never hear from him again.
It finishes like wide receiver 31. You're like, Marvin Jones had a pretty decent year. He finished 31, but really
from three showings.
90%. Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question before we finish up and wrap up here is, do you, outside of Detroit Lions, who are your, however you can name as many as you want, who are your plant flag players? Like, who are the people that players that you're all in on this season?
I may be a little bit too much all in on this one player, but I'm going after Calvin Ridley. I know he's expensive. Ooh. It's in the 3rd round, but I know what that young man can do. And you want to talk about playing with the chip on their shoulder. That poor kid has gone through a lot the last 2 years. I mean, with his mental health, and he took care of himself, but then he gets suspended. It's like, come on. But he's under Doug Peterson now, which I think is such a nurturing atmosphere for him to be in. And I think that after a few weeks, he's really going to start looking like the Calvin Ridley that we once knew. So I do have a strong opinion about Calvin Ridley. That one's a little bit more on the spicy side. For the quarterback position, don't forget about Jordan Love, everybody. Look what happened to Geno Smith.
Yes.
Yes, behind Pete Carroll, behind everyone that poor Geno Smith did for 13 years or however long he's been in the NFL. And he just came out swinging last year. And Jordan Love has had to do that same thing behind Aaron Rodgers of all people, and the team is really behind him. So I think that he's really going to surprise. I really like him as a high upside late quarterback option. Another one too, we're talking about these running backs by committee. I'm going to stick with the Jacksonville Jaguars here, and Tank Bigsby is someone I want everyone to. He's getting really popular, so that probably won't sound too spicy here. But
no, but like 2 weeks ago, this is like kind of spicy,
right? It was kind of spicy, but Travis Etienne got like an exorbitant amount of touches that were just way too much. And he even said he needed some help. They want to keep these young men fresh, especially for 17 weeks of this season. They want to go to the playoffs. They want to have a chance to succeed. And to do that in real football, you do need to be able to rotate these backs out. And Tank Bigsby, I mean, for his last name is Tank. So there's that. But he's a really special player. And I have a feeling this is going to be a lot more of a committee than people want. And I'm actually going to be going after Tank Bigsby over Travis Etienne.
Ooh,
I love it.
Hey,
that's a call right there, everybody.
Yeah, and
heard it here, probably not first, but
Calvin Ridley training camp videos have been insane. And
it looks like he was in fast forward, like running the routes compared to Zay.
And I get suckered by these, so I'm already like, my brains are going to move.
Except for that one.
And you made a good point. Papa Peterson, he has that nurturing sort of like
Papa Peterson, I love it.
Yeah, he's the Papa of the NFL. So yes. I mean, it's good. It's gonna be good for Calvin Ridley to come in there
and his visor.
He's a cool dude. But just also another thing about the Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, we bring up Doug Peterson. If anyone knows the Eagles or is Eagles fans, as you will all know, he is a running back by committee guy. When he tried to run Miles Sanders, they lost. So he went back to the running back by committee, and that's how it's going to be.
It was pretty wild watching Etienne get the work he was getting last season. It shocked me. I thought we would see him getting a ton more targets, and we weren't. And
that was on the strange
ton
side.
More carries. Yeah.
It was.
I was so confused. No, but Lauren, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. Like, truly, truly appreciate it. You told us sometime last year at the expo, you said, I will hop on whenever you guys need me to, as long as I think you said, as long as it's not late. And we were like, for sure, whenever we start getting like some of these recordings during the day, we're going to hit you up. And we did. And the moment we did, you said, I'm in.
That's of course. Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to, you guys are coming to the expo this year too, right?
No,
We
we
are
both have
not. bachelor
parties.
Bachelor
Separate
parties
bachelor
is-
parties at that.
Yeah.
I know. I am
All right,
bummed.
know.
fine.
I
You're
really
gonna
am
miss out
bummed.
on a good time. The Women of
I'm
Fantasy
so
Football have
upset.
the big auditorium this year too, and
I'm
we
so
have the
upset.
inaugural Queens Classic. You guys are missing out on like an iconic
I know.
expo this year.
And we're close. Like the worst part is we're close. Like I'm in Columbus, he's in Cleveland. So like we're
Ouch.
we're
Ouch.
yeah, this
Yeah.
really I'm going
am
to
not
Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Where are you located out?
Florida.
Of? Florida. Okay.
Also
So you
known
be
as
in
Hell.
Florida.
Yeah, it's also Hell or the Service of the Sun is where I live. Like if you look at
That's
a
where
map,
I will be.
yeah, if you look at a map, you see the sun, and then in between the sun and the earth is Florida. And then there's the earth. That's where I live.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
And I do not burn well. I will say that. It is usually pretty bad. So come
Rob,
back
you're a
looking like
fake
a lobster.
Italian.
Oh.
So thank you so much again, though. But like before we get out of here, if you don't mind letting the fans know where to find you, anything super exciting that's coming up, if you just want to plug away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving me the option. I love it. You can find me on social media at Twitter, X, whatever. I'm mostly like the most responsive on that particular platform, whatever it's called now, at Stepmom Lauren. I'm there all over social media platforms. You can also find me at my website is stepmomlauren.com. I'm woefully behind updating some of my newest work here, but I'm going to be working on that this afternoon, actually. So you can subscribe to my website. It is completely free, but anytime I add new content, you get an email notification that you can watch a new video or read a new article. And every Mondays this off season, I'm with Jake Seeley on our podcast, All in Football, Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. You can watch that on the FTN YouTube channel. So that's the FTN Fantasy Network's YouTube channel. And then we recently, this month, were picked up by SiriusXM, which is so exciting. We are on channel 87, which is their fantasy sports radio network program. Channel 87, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. It is the FTN Fantasy Show. If you miss it live, you can always go back and watch it on or listen to it on demand. We have way too much fun on that show. Like it's criminal how much fun we have.
Good.
It's bad.
That's
But
good.
it's
so cool.
Yeah, I come check me out, everybody. Come say hi. And hopefully I get to see most people except for you two at the expo.
I know.
I'm bummed.
I know.
Thank you so much, Lauren. We appreciate your time today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
We are now bringing in one of our favorite fantasy football personalities, Corey Easterday, to talk the Minnesota Vikings. You can check him out on Twitter at Corey Easterday. That's Corey Easterday. He's a writer over at Dynasty Nerds, and he also has his own podcast, The Easter Pod. So definitely go check that out. He's a jack of all trades, like he was just telling me off air. He's one of our favorite people. Corey, buddy, how have you been?
Rob, I've been good. It's so good to finally be on the Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. Like I was telling you, it's just an honor. I admire the work y'all do, and it's a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it all week to just come on and talk some Minnesota Vikings. I got my Dynasty Nerds Minnesota Vikings theme.
Yeah, I like that.
I got my Twin Cities Starbucks mug from like 10 years ago, the old school. So I'm ready. Let's do it.
That's awesome, dude. And this will not be the last time you're on. Don't you worry. We're going to get you on for a full episode. Me, you, and Mario will sit down and have some fun. But for right now, we're going to talk some Minnesota Vikings. They have a couple key departures, a lot of defensive players. They're kind of reworking that side of the ball. Then they lose Irv Smith, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook. Those are kind of the big guys that they lost. And then some additions, Josh Oliver, Garrett Bradbury, and of course, Jordan Addison. The first question I kind of always ask everybody when we start this off is, what are your expectations for the Minnesota Vikings this season?
Yeah, so from a fantasy football perspective, I think that the Minnesota Vikings, I was just writing a piece for Dynasty Nerds about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And basically the idea is fantasy football has a lot of variables to it to be successful. There's obviously a lot that goes into having a successful season, staying engaged, paying attention week to week, doing your research, all of that. But in many ways, I do think you can boil it down in a simple mindset of get great players on great, high productive offenses on your fantasy football roster. And
it's not as hard as we make it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes it really is that simple. And the Vikings are one of those offenses. The trick is, though, it's identifying the players that are going to have that right mix of having a really strong skill set, but having like the opportunity and being in the right offensive scheme and all that good stuff. So all that to say, in general, my expectation is that the Vikings will very much be one of those offenses in fantasy football going into the 2023 season that if you have one or multiple pieces of that offense, it's going to set you up for success on a week-to-week basis.
Dude, I love what you just said there. That makes a ton of sense. So go check that article out. We'll talk about it later when we end this sucker, but go check that out because I'm sure there's a ton of really good nuggets in there. But let's talk about the man who is going to drive this ship, Mr. Primetime himself, Kirk Cousins. He finished as QB7 last season, and by all accounts, he kind of outperformed what most of the people in the industry thought would happen. Now, do you think we saw the best of Kirk Cousins last season, or is there kind of more room to grow?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky with Kirk Cousins. So I don't know if you or the listeners are familiar with The Athletic, the writer Mike Sando. He does a quarterback tiers every offseason. That's one of my favorite pieces of football content that I look forward to. And I believe that this most recent one that came out, Kirk Cousins was in the second or third quarterback tier. I can't remember. I think it was second tier, but or maybe it was third tier. At any rate, the point is, in that piece, I heard Mike Sando talking about it on the Ryan Russillo podcast. It was like the votes were split from the people in the NFL that vote on QB tiers. I think half of them had Cousins in like the third tier, half in the second tier. All that to say, Kirk Cousins, you talk about ceiling with him. He's just a total like middle of the road floor fantasy guy to me, where you know what you're getting year in and year out. Like, I don't know if he'll ever ascend to kind of that elite tier of quarterbacks, both in the league and from a fantasy perspective, but he's certainly never going to hit that bottom tier. He's just squarely in the middle year to year. And one of the best indicators of that, so I have fantasy data pulled up, which is a great website that I use for a lot of my pieces with Dynasty Nerds. But on looking on fantasy data, just if this isn't an indicator, his completion percentage and passing yardage year over year. So just going back to like 2018, so last 5 seasons, I guess, 70.1%, 69.1%, 67, 66, 65.9, like just consistent high completion percentage, great accuracy. Yardage total every season since 2018, with the exception of 2019, has been in the 4K plus range. Touchdowns are always 25. He's thrown for 25 or more touchdowns in each of the last 5 seasons since 2018. The dude is what he is in fantasy football and in the league.
That's a great way to put it. He is what he is. We know what we're kind of getting with him year in and year out. Now he's going off the board at QB 13, 107 overall. Are you comfortable with Kirk kind of being your QB1 going into the season, or are you looking for more of an upside play and he's like a really good safe, like him and an Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, it depends on kind of league format, obviously. So as many folks that have been on the show, I play in multiple league formats. Super flex league, I can definitely see a world where you maybe punt a little bit and you get Kirk Cousins and pair him with an Anthony Richardson type in your super flex team. In a 1 quarterback league, I still think, like, if you're in a 12-team 1 quarterback league, I would still argue for him being one of those 12 quarterbacks that you're starting. So kind of in that top third fantasy wise. So to answer your question, I do think I would be comfortable in a scenario if he was my QB1. Again, depends on league format, but in that scenario, I would want to make sure that he's only my QB1 because I chose to invest heavily at a different position. So as we'll talk about soon, maybe I picked up a guy like JJ in the first round and I want to stack those two, right? Just punting on quarterback a little bit. I'm okay with that. But I think he's being valued appropriately. I don't know if he'll eclipse his numbers from the last several years. I think it'll be pretty consistent, but you get him on your team, you're getting a guy that's going to have consistent production week to week.
Yeah, he's not going to lose you a week because he's just going to be steady Eddie. Now let's talk about, you brought up JJ. Let's talk about him. He was the best wide receiver in the league last year. I don't know how really anybody could argue that. Is there a world where you're not taking JJ at the 101 in PPR formats?
The short answer is Probably not. I mean, there's
Yeah.
Just the way my brain works in fantasy, there are always, like I said, there's always multiple variables. There's many different roster builds you can do that are valid. Some could argue. I was listening to the Ringers Fantasy Football show recently, and they were talking about, maybe you just take Travis Kelce, even in a kind of standard 1 QB league.
I've been hearing that a lot.
So it's maybe this is why I'll never be fully successful in the fantasy industry, because I'm not a hot take guy. I do think there are multiple avenues that you can take here. But all that to say, me personally, if it comes down to it, I'm taking JJ 101. It really is that simple. I've had him in my home dynasty league since his rookie year, and I've been over the moon every year. So I want that guy in my team. And if you don't take him 101, he's not going to be anywhere near your next pick. So you better grab him if you want him.
Yeah, I mean, he's going 1 or 2 overall. There's no question about that. It's the only argument that I've heard that makes somewhat sense is Jamar Chase going over him at the 101, just because of, his elite production with Joe Burrow, because we know what Joe Burrow is. He's, it is what it is. We like Kirk, but Joe Burrow is better than Kirk Cousins. So you kind of pair those two up. But I'm with you, dude. I don't see a world where I'm not taking JJ at the 101. Now let's talk about kind of one of the other pieces to this offense that came over from the Detroit Lions, TJ Hawkinson. He finished as tight end 4 overall. Do you think he's the number 2 option in this offense? And are you comfortable taking him at his ADP? He's going tight end 3 right now, 44 overall. So like late 3rd in the 4th round.
I don't see how TJ is another guy that we saw last year. When you put him in a situation with Minnesota last season, he just skyrocketed in value and production. It was a thing of beauty, and he was presumably people were maybe sleeping on him a little bit with the trade because it's a new offense. You don't know what you're going to get. Adam Thielen was the presumed number 2, but now that he's not there, replace him with Jordan Addison. I have a hard time believing that, especially when you consider a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, who on the most critical 4th down of his entire season tries to sling it to a guy like TJ. Like he's gonna favor TJ, I think, as the number 2 option. I don't think that's in question. I think as we'll talk about, Jordan Addison's going to get a lot of love and some of those other new additions on offense, but I think the production level is going to remain high. I think it's absolutely, his ADP tight end 3. I think he's going to finish as a top 5 tight end. There are a lot of good sleeper tight ends that I like, but in general, the tight end position year over year, as we've seen, just judging by the fact that you had Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews duking it out. Travis Kelce finishing as the tight end 1 for a number of years in a row. Mark Andrews stole the crown. Kelce took it back. Like at the top tier, it's a little bit more shallow. So I have no issue taking a guy like TJ as my tight end 3, tight end 4, kind of in that range, and investing in him because I think he's going to be a big beneficiary of that offense this year as a number 2 option. And I think, as we've talked about with Kirk Cousins, there's going to be a consistent level of production, and TJ is going to benefit. So,
yeah, I love what you just said there, man. For me, he's my tight end 3. I think he's solidly in that mix. I don't think he'll quite get up to that Mark Andrews area quite yet. He could. I think this is the year that there's a real possibility for him to jump up into that, tier 1 category with the other 2 guys. Time will tell, but I'm excited for his outlook this season. Now, you brought up Jordan Addison. He is, one of the higher end rookie tight ends coming into the league. Thielen had 621 routes run last season, which was number 2 in the NFL besides JJ. Now, are you expecting that kind of volume right off the bat? And is he your number 1 rookie wide receiver coming in for redraft purposes this season?
Yeah, so great question on Jordan Addison. Obviously, a very big name this year in our Dynasty nerds, Dynasty League circles. I think, so we've seen this consistent trend of every year there are rookie wide receivers, to answer the first part of your question, that are underdrafted, maybe a little bit undervalued. I think people are kind of catching on to it more, so maybe not so much in recent years, but each year over year, we see guys like last year, you had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave that were not drafted anywhere near to the level of production they finished at in fantasy at the end of the year. They had a big breakout year. You've had guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, so on and so forth. Every year you have these rookie wide receivers that have a lot of hype and buzz, but then outperform that hype and buzz, both on the field within their team's offense and then from a fantasy production standpoint. And I do think that Jordan Addison will be in that upper tier of rookie wide receivers. I think the hype on him is very much warranted heading into the season. I think that production-wise, he will probably outperform his ADP, and he'll probably outperform the expectations as high as they may be. I am that high on him in the Vikings offense. I think he'll be a big beneficiary of, like you said, those vacated routes, those vacated targets. I think he's going to be a key piece of their offensive plan going into the season. He's one of the reasons they are comfortable with losing an Adam Thielen type. In many ways, I think you could even view him as an upgrade over Adam Thielen. Now, because he's a rookie, and what you've seen consistently with these rookie wide receivers is there are a handful every year that have great fantasy production. And I think Addison, he's not going to stay on your bench very long. He'll quickly get into that like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, week-to-week starter. But like we've seen, even with the Wilsons and Olaves last year, you'll have those kind of fluctuation. Like you'll have some boom weeks. He'll become a fantasy darling. There'll be a lot of good hype around him. But then, it might dip for a week or two because the reality is he's still a rookie in the National Football League. It still takes time to, get acclimated to the offense, to become fully comfortable, to develop that chemistry. So I think he's going to have a great season, may fluctuate a little bit, but by the end of this year, heading into next season, we'll be looking at him with his stock on the rise in this Vikings offense. However, to answer your second question, he's not my wide receiver 101 from like a dynasty rookie perspective this year. On our Dynasty Nerds website, on our rankings, our team has from The Ohio State University, Jackson Smith and Jigba, JSN. I know you can appreciate that.
Of course I can.
It's not just the Buckeye in me. I was born and raised in Ohio, lived there for most of my life, 29 years. He is on that trend we've seen, the Wilson, the Olave. Like he's gonna be great in that Seattle offense. I'm getting shares of him everywhere that I can this season. I think he is safely the 101 for rookie wide receiver dynasty purposes. And in redraft leagues, any league format this year, I think you're going to love having JSN on your squad. So I think it's pretty safely those two, JSN and Jordan Addison. But all in all, I do think Jordan Addison is going to thrive in this Vikings offense in year one.
Corey, man, that was awesome. What you just brought up, all the attention to detail in that answer was spot on, because we do see it year in and year out that these rookie wide receivers come in and they're just, undervalued in redraft startups because you don't know what you're getting when you draft these players. But there are always multiple rookie wide receivers, at least for the past 5 seasons, I would say, that come in and, outproduce their ADP. And that's the name of the game in fantasy football, is get the steal at the ADP and can they outperform where you take them. That's kind of how you win your leagues, really. And you're right, man. If you can get, a JSN or an Addison where they're going in these drafts, and maybe not for the first half of the season, but that back half of the season where they can kind of take off and become your flex play, become your wide receiver too. That's where you can really catapult and get into the playoffs and win your championships with these guys.
Just add to that real quick. Scott Fishbowl, last year I picked up Garrett Wilson, I think in the 9th round, and he was he's a huge reason that I had success in that league last year. And this year in the 9th round, Jackson Smith and Jigba, they just year over year, these guys outperform it.
Yeah, I think we got Olave in the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. And, again, just completely smashed his ADP where he was going. And it seems it's a weird kind of thing when you sit back and look at it, that these rookie wide receivers are just so undervalued. I get it. I mean, I understand because you haven't seen it play out yet, but we just know time in and time again that these wide receivers come in and they're just good. But But I want to pivot this. Okay, we're going to pivot over to the run game. Dalvin Cook's not there anymore. By all accounts, it looks like Alexander Mattison is finally going to get his time to shine. I want you to bear with me here for a second, okay? He's had 5 career games of 20-plus carries. His fantasy points in those games, 29, 16, 21, 25, and 23. Are we too low on Alexander Mattison coming off at RB 22-ish?
I'll give a detailed answer, but I think the short answer is no. I think he's right in the acceptable range of where he should be going. And if I'm feeling a little bit, I know, like I said, I'm not a hot take guy, but if I'm feeling a little bit spicy, I think maybe you could even draft him a bit lower than that. Like, I certainly don't think he's being undervalued, basically. I think he's either appropriately valued or even slightly overvalued, if I may be so bold, because I was thinking about it, and I don't think it's crazy that there could be a world where the Vikings rely more heavily on the passing game this season. They've had success there. Like we've just discussed, you have that trio of JJ, Addison, and Hawkinson. KJ Osborne, is going to be a good guy again in that offense. So I could see a world where certainly Alexander Mattison will be their kind of primary starter, but I do foresee more of a running back by committee, as some are saying. I think you're going to see maybe it's just the dynasty guy in me, but I think some Ty Chandler, Dwayne McBride, Ken A is in there. Like you have these guys behind Madison that I think the Vikings are going to want to focus on the passing attack because they're going to find success there. I think they're going to want to look at the talent that they have behind Madison. I don't think they probably view him as like the long-term solution. And I think you're going to see that running back by committee with a heavy focus on the passing game. And so ultimately, I think that'll equate to, if I'm being generous, like low-end RB2 production throughout the year. Let's just say this. Last season, I held on to Alexander Mattison in my home dynasty league basically the whole season as long as I could.
Yeah.
With all the trade discussions and all that jazz, and finally gave up, traded him for a 3rd-round pick in this year's rookie draft. And when the news broke about Dalvin, I immediately regretted that decision. And as the weeks have gone on, I feel a little bit more okay with it. So if that's any indication of kind of how I feel about Madison, like I said, I think he's going to be the Kirk Cousins of the Vikings running back position. I think he'll
interesting. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
But it'll be like kind of a low end. It's not going to be maybe a ceiling play, I guess is how I would sum it up.
Yeah, I like what you said there. He's one of those polarizing players in the fantasy football community right now where it's you love him or you're kind of out on him. It's not really, there's no wiggle room. It's you're in, you're out. Sounds like you're out a little bit, which I completely understand. Mario's completely in. I'm one of the few where I'm like, I like his ADP at 22. Like if it stays there, I'll take him because I think there's an upside play. But I can see a world where you're 100% correct, where it's way more running back by committee, and they end up throwing the ball 40 times a game because they have some of the best weapons and a very consistent quarterback with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and he's polarizing. Most of the guys that end up being polarizing in fantasy each year is because they have a broader range of outcomes. And Madison has a broader range of outcomes. So I could be dead wrong. I could be right on. Falls in the middle. Like we really don't know. And as is true in fantasy football, I guarantee you that if I hadn't traded him in my home dynasty league, I would be singing his praises and thinking he's going to be awesome. So that's how it works.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great way to put it, though. Like the polarizing players are the ones that just have that big range of outcomes because it makes sense, right? Like it can go one way, it can go the other, and that's why it's polarizing. That's a good way to put it. I've never heard somebody say that before, but it's 100% true. One more question on the Vikings. Are there any other players that you're interested in for this offense?
Well, so first of all, the range of outcomes thing, I'd be remiss. I think I first heard that from Matthew Berry, like that.
Okay.
In one of his many pieces. That seemed like a genius way to think about fantasy football. Yeah. Like every player has a range of outcomes, and you're gauging what it is. And same with like the talent and opportunity. So I'd be remiss if I didn't credit the godfather of fantasy football himself for some of the ways that I've kind of grown in my acumen over the years. But as far as other players that I'm interested in on the Vikings, I was combing through their roster earlier. I think the only other one I would mention again is I think quarterback position is well covered barring an injury. Wide receiver, tight end is, I think you're going to get a lot of TJ. I think maybe Johnny Munt, it was one of the other ones I saw. That's I don't know that there's much tight end depth as far as pass catching. You're not rocking the Irv Smith, Tyler Conklin duo anymore. So, and running back we discussed. I think the only other guy would be KJ Osborne. I would think about him as he's probably like a high end wide receiver forward right now. Like his range of outcomes is a little bit smaller, but if we go with what we're envisioning the Vikings offense to be this year, as far as leaning more on the passing attack, I think he's worth a speculative look, maybe worth an ad, depending on how deep your league is. And, you never know with football injuries and all that stuff. He could see his value skyrocket pretty quickly. So,
yeah, KJ's always been a guy that I'm super interested in. I think he's just a good football player. So that's why I always keep an eye on him, seeing what's going on. I thought last year was going to be his breakout season, but it did not pan out that way. So I get it. I think that's a great call. KJ would be the one for me as well, outside the big ones that we talked about. And then one question, Corey, that I ask all of the people that we've had on so far. Who are your plant the flag players this season, regardless of team? Who are the players you're going out and getting in every draft that you can?
Great question. I hope I'm not limited to just one because I have.
No, give me a couple.
All right, I got a decent list here, so I'll run through it very quickly. But quarterback, I think Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, guys that I'm really interested in to see what they do going into this season. I know that's been the hot debate between those two, but those are both kind of my like. If I can get those guys, aside from all the obviously elite tier guys we know about and that kind of stuff, I really like those guys, Fields and Lawrence. I would say running back wise, again, maybe I'm biased because I just wrote about the Jaguars, but I really like seeing what ETN's going to do and what is essentially his second season because of the injury his rookie year. I know that we have the Tank Bigsby. I think there's going to be, he's going to be a key role in that offense as well in the backfield, but I really like ETN. I got him in the 5th round in Scott Fish Bowl this year, and I was feeling really happy about that. And I put him next to another guy everyone's very hyped on is Bijan. I think he's going to be possibly like finish as a top 3 running back this year. That wouldn't be crazy to me for Bijan. And then a couple wide receivers every single season. And we were talking about Jamar Chase earlier as a potential 101. The reason I don't think Chase is, I think he obviously has like the 101 talent in PPR. I'm not disputing that, but I really love T. Higgins. I love him every year. Like T. Higgins is my guy. He's clearly a wide receiver 1 functioning as a wide receiver 2. And to me, he's the biggest reason why you maybe wouldn't take Chase at 101, not because of any concern with Joe Burrow, but because T. Higgins is the 1B to Chase's 1A in many ways in that offense. And Garrett Wilson, man, again, it's probably the Ohio State bias, but
I'll tell you.
I got him everywhere I could his rookie year, like every league I could get him in, and it paid off big time. He's always a plant your flag guy. And, the last guy I would list, actually two last guys at the tight end position, Mark Andrews. I'm a big Lamar guy. I think that the Ravens offense always is exciting to watch each year. And I think that duo of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, I actually just wrote about Likely being kind of an undervalued tight end because I think he's just ultra talented. And then the very last guy, this might be my most hot takey thing I've said this episode, is Cole Kmet. I think he's going to ascend with Justin Fields.
Ooh.
And he was super frustrating last year. First 8 games, he had like 14 catches on 20 targets, 159 yards, 1 touchdown, if I'm remembering stats correctly. And he had those couple boom weeks, but I think this year he'll get back finally maybe to that breakout status. I really like me some Cole Kmet. So those are I know that's like 10 guys, but
I like it, dude.
when you write about fantasy football a lot, you got a lot of plant your flag guys. So.
Yeah, and so do I. Don't you worry. I got a ton of them. And we're going to have that debate. We're going to have a Dad Bod Squad episode coming out where it's all of us going on and giving our plant the flag players. So I'll have a few of those on there. Corey, dude, this was a blast. It was so much fun getting back together with you because obviously I haven't seen you since the Expo last season. But before we let you go, plug away, let people know where they can find you and what you got coming out soon.
Yeah, so first and foremost for fantasy purposes will be dynastynerds.com. Been a nerd herd guy since before I started writing, but I've been writing since 2021 with those guys and doing as much stuff with the nerd herd as I can. Always got to represent that. I actually just had an article drop today. It's August 3rd is when we're recording this. That piece we mentioned a couple of times about forecasting the Jacksonville Jaguars and how I think they're going to be one of those offenses that's going to, a lot of the winning squads this year are going to have some Jags guys on them. Dynasty debate series on Dynasty Nerds, where I just argued for Cole Kmet. So always check out the Dynasty Nerd stuff. I do have a podcast called the Easter Pod, which, as we were chatting off air, has some fantasy football. I interviewed my buddy Garrett Price from Dynasty Nerds on it before, and there's certainly a bit of that with sports, but it's more geared to a lot of the work I do in the nonprofit and creative spaces. So, but check out the Easter Pod. And then I do have a nonprofit. I serve as the national director for Current Initiatives. We do stuff in 18 states around the country to just kind of help meet a tangible need for families and do a lot of good stuff with that organization. So check out Current. And last but not least, I co-own a business with my wife, Easterday Creative. So your boy stays pretty busy all in all.
A man of many hats, Corey Easterday. Thank you so much, buddy.
Cheers, Rob. Thank you.
Right. Now joining us, a special treat. We have Tiffany Haile and Janet Wilson. Tiff is one of our OG listeners, and you can find her on Twitter at Haile44. That's HAILE 44. And Janet is over at the Lombardi Sweep podcast, and you can follow her at OJanJan. That's at OHHJANJAN on Twitter with, you have it written here, Rob, with two H's. Thank you guys so much for hopping on with us today to talk some Packers. We saw a lot of movement with the Green Bay Packers this season. There was a lot of people that left. They added some guys. So I'm going to talk about some of the bigger names, the major departures here. We had Aaron Rodgers leaving, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Robert Tonyan. Some of the additions you guys had, a couple rookies here, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Kraft. So how are we feeling about, and I'm going to start off with you, Janet. How are we feeling about this, sort of youth movement in Green Bay?
I'm excited. So you forgot Mason Crosby, which was a big piece to our team.
I didn't even know he left.
Yes, he retired. His wife,
okay.
His wife posted it on Twitter, and it just blew up, and I don't think she intended it to blow up, but Packers Twitter, once it finds one of us, it finds all of us. So I'm assuming she posted it not thinking anything of it, saying goodbye to Green Bay, all the great years, and somebody retweeted it and it just went viral. So Mason Crosby was one of the biggest pieces, I believe. And I know we have Aaron Rodgers and all those also leaving as well. But I think Mason Crosby, if you think about most of our wins in the past seasons, most of our wins came down to a field goal. A lot of games were ugly and they had to be won with him. And now he's gone. Even with Aaron Rodgers on our team, we still needed Mason Crosby. Money Mason. So I'm excited for this new team moving forward. I'm excited for the youth. Even the social media team and the organization that runs the Packers is very old school, so bringing all these new guys in. We've got Simone Biles. I just call him Simone Biles' husband. But even bringing her into the mix of because she's our generation.
Help me out here.
Yeah, what's going on with Simone Biles?
So no, she's saying what Packer is married to Simone Biles? Am I an idiot?
Jonathan Owens.
Okay.
He was on the Texans.
And they just got married, right?
He plays safety.
Okay.
Yeah, they just got married. But just like having her in the mix, and like everybody was loving that they were having like a boat party during Memorial Day, and it just bringing in that energy of like fun. And instead of, I love Aaron Rodgers with all my heart, but is he going to show up to practice? Like just biting my
every
nails.
season.
Biting my nails every season. We see everybody else's teams on the map showing up to practice. Everybody else's quarterbacks, and we're stuck wondering whether ours is going to show up or not.
When he's coming out of the dark retreat,
Yeah,
like that's,
yeah.
What I have a confession here is I saw the video of, I think it was Christian Watson racing Simone Biles. Yes. And I don't think I realized that was the wedding until you just said that. And that's how I knew it was recent.
Yeah. And she's 4'8", so I'm actually taller than her.
By 1 inch.
By 2. Wait, 3. I'm 4'11". But just to have that energy, and she's super competitive.
Yeah, it's winning mentality.
Yeah, it's a winning. Exactly. So I'm excited for all this energy coming through, and I am definitely sad to see a lot of my favorite players go, because they were my childhood. They were what I grew up with. And then also because I had 5 active jerseys and now I only have like 2 or 1.
Oh no.
I only have one active jersey.
And it's Christian Watson. I'm wearing that.
Yeah.
It's sad to see a lot of my favorites go, but at the same time, it's a business and we need to move forward.
It's a new age.
100%. So Tiff, with this youth movement and Aaron Rodgers being gone and all these kind of moving pieces, the new leader, Jordan Love, coming in, are there any rumblings coming out of camp, any rumblings in Green Bay, where you guys are at in Texas? I know you guys are following all the tweets and on Twitter and all that sort of stuff on Green Bay. What are your expectations kind of for Jordan Love this season? Do you think he's going to have a good season, or is it kind of just up in the air? Does nobody really know?
I mean, I don't think no one really knows right now. I mean, I think we're hopeful, right? But as a Packer fan, we have high expectations. We've had Brett Favre, we've had Bart Starr, we've had Aaron Rodgers. Like, we expect greatness. And I think like Jordan Love being behind Rodgers is going to help him in the long run. But personally, I haven't seen a lot of Jordan Love. I don't know who really has. We saw him a little bit last season when he came in to play, when I think we played the Eagles around Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
And he looks good. His feet movement remind me a lot of Aaron Rodgers, but we only saw him a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, as a Packer fan, we're always going to have high expectations. I think we remain hopeful, excited, but also a little uneasy because we don't know really what's coming.
That's a great way to put that, right? Like, you guys have high expectations. I mean, it's one of the few teams that, I don't know about you, Mario, but in my lifetime, like, it's been them, the Patriots, a couple other teams that have held down the quarterback position. I mean, we're Cleveland Browns.
The Browns have it?
So, yeah, right. So, obviously,
revolving door, baby.
The complete opposite situation of what you guys have had over the past 10, 15 seasons. I mean, I saw a stat. I think the last time you guys haven't had a Hall of Fame or future Hall of Fame quarterback was in like 2002 to start the season. So yeah, that's a great way to put that. And with that, like, if he gets off to a slow start, how crazy is this fan base going to get? Like, what if you guys start 2-6?
We're ruthless.
Yeah,
I know.
I was about to say, think about this. We a lot of at the shareholders meeting, Mark Murphy mentioned Aaron Rodgers and people booed.
Yes.
That's tough, man. You guys a ring.
Yeah.
He went out roasted though.
He went out
a little funny. Yeah.
Went out the wrong way.
He did. He really did. But at the same time, he did give us a lot of good memories and good years, and we were spoiled. So for people to boo, I don't know. I personally wouldn't have booed.
We're with you. Like, we're Cleveland fans, and yes, we've never felt what you guys have had in Green Bay, but we have with the Cavs. And there's still some Cleveland people that hate LeBron, and it kind of blows my mind. Like,
those people.
He came back 2016, got us a ring. We feel it, and I wouldn't boo him. I would if he said he wanted to come back, I'd be like, come on back.
We'll take,
Yeah, we'll take
we
you.
love you. Come on.
Those same people that booed would get excited if Aaron Rodgers came back.
Yeah, they would be like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. That's
They'd be
because they
like,
don't trust Jordan. They don't trust Big Love.
well, they
Mario's-
cheered when Mark Murphy mentioned Jordan Love. They cheered.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's what I
yeah.
like to hear.
Mario has high
We'll see if they
expectations
keep
for
cheering
Huge.
throughout the season.
Yeah. Now, after week 2, not only are Packers fans, if they're let down, they're going to be mad. But what I'm going to be hearing it from our Dad Bod crew about, ooh, look at Jordan Love. It takes 2 weeks to hear from them if he starts off slow.
You're a Jordan Love stan, right, Mario?
Oh,
Mario
big
is-
time.
Okay.
Big time. It's weird because Robbie and I have switched positions on a couple of different players from last season to this season. And I think Jordan Love was the biggest one. I watched that Philly game. I was watching it live and I got caught just based on his 9 attempts. I think he threw that game. But I thought the same thing that you said. He was fast feet and his ball head zip. Of course, he had 65 yards from Christian Watson that game, but he looked great. He looked great.
I think he
Yeah,
did. I know it was a short time, but he looked.
It was a
he
short
looked
time.
He did. I'll say this.
I became a
hope he's
Packer
good.
fan that day.
I do hope he's
Come
good.
on over. You wore the green
Yeah.
too. I like it.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't get the memo. I didn't get the
You're
memo.
messing up, dude. I incidentally am 2 for 2 on these with the team colors. So let's talk the backfield a little bit because we found out pre-show that Janet got to interview AJ Dillon this offseason, or was this last year?
It was actually not this past year. It was the year before. I was on Cheese.
So it was his rookie season.
Yes. So Carry the G with Aaron Nagler, like he usually gets a rookie that season, and then he gets people like kind of like this, people off Twitter, reporters, just to join in on the panel, and then to just get like something out of the rookies, like just to have fun with them.
That's
so
pretty cool.
I was able to interview him, and it was really fun. He's really nice.
I think it's awesome. He's a guy that I'm super excited about. I've been, I don't know if either of you guys play Dynasty, but I've been buying him everywhere in Dynasty because I just think I have high expectations for him as
You
well.
guys talk about
ridiculous.
Dynasty, and it's like over my
Yeah.
head.
Oh yeah.
But you can talk about like PPR fantasy football, and I can like go with you there.
Well,
right?
so like, yeah. So and AJ Dillon, like this year, Aaron Jones is still there, and Aaron Jones still looks great. So this is one of the best RB duos in the game. Like, do we expect that to continue? Do you think there is going to be a passing guard? I'm actually going to go to you, Janet, on what you think about this backfield.
All right. So I know Matt LaFleur talked about adjusting as they go. I do think they're going to continue just because if you think about it, it is such a young crew that AJ Dillon, I used to call Aaron Jones AJ. So now it's just been
AJ and AJ.
AJ and AJ. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So I think both AJs are going to play a critical role due to the fact that they're veterans and they've been doing this and they trust each other, and you're going to get all these new guys coming in. And now I'm not saying you don't trust the new guys, but if you've relied so much on this one guy, you're probably going to go to him first before you go to everyone else. And I just think that they're workhorses. I always use this term with these guys because they are workhorses. They're so reliable. I am a huge Aaron Jones fan. Like, not only is he from Texas, he's just a great person. And I think AJ Dillon is just as, talented, but Aaron Jones will always be my guy. I will always opt for him, and he's my guy. But I just hope, because I know last year he was injured for a bit, but I also know that I also noticed that Matt LaFleur did not use him as much. And then after games that we lost, where if he had used Aaron Jones, he went up on the press, out on the pressers, and said,
I should have used Jones.
We should have used Jones every single time. And
Such a coach talk.
Yeah, Yeah, and while I'm at home screaming at my TV, put Aaron Jones in. And then also on the podcast, who do you hope to see, like break out during this game? Aaron Jones, every single time.
Yeah.
And then just to see that continuously just build up the mistakes on that. I just hope that Matt LaFleur, I know that I say this all the time. Aaron Rodgers was a big part of this offense because he was so experienced. And Matt LaFleur had that kind of to build off of. Now Aaron Rodgers is not there anymore. So I feel like he has no other way to turn other than Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Those are his veteran guys. So I think they're going to be a big part of our offense coming in this year.
Janet, that's a great way that you just put that they're going to make the focal point of this offense Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, Christian Watson. They're going to have to rely on their best players to get through, getting their however you want to say Jordan Love. He's pretty much a rookie coming into this season. So Tiff, I'm going to kind of switch gears to you. I always kind of talk about this with young quarterbacks. You don't really know what you're going to get passing game wise for the running backs. You don't know if they're going to check down a lot or if they're going to try to force feed the ball downfield. So with this, do you anticipate kind of the running backs still getting involved in the pass game as much as, Aaron Rodgers loved to check down to Aaron Jones all the time. We know how many passes he catches season in and season out. Do you see that continuing with Jordan Love coming in?
I do. Yeah. I think it's still going to work out for them. I actually see them utilizing Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon more with Aaron Rodgers gone, because there was a lot of times in the season where it was 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, and we're passing the ball. We're not giving it off to our running backs or chunking it down, and we tend to never use the middle of the field. Aaron Rodgers does not like the middle of the field. He'll go out to the sidelines or down. I'm right, Janet. Down.
No, for sure.
So,
I've seen the highlights.
Yeah. So I do think that it's Jordan Love is still going to utilize Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I think hopefully more.
That's an interesting take. I like that a lot. I think you're right. I hope you're right for PPR fantasy. That would be a gold mine for Aaron Jones where he's going.
I do have a question about AJ Dillon when it comes to Dynasty. Is he high or low right now?
He's pretty low right now.
He's pretty low.
Yeah.
So just something to consider is I think this year is his contract year, right? Mm-hmm. So he has a lot to play for. And I think that he possibly could bring it,
I do too. That's a great point, Tiff. That's something that, people don't really talk about enough, in my personal opinion, because you see that all the time when these guys are playing for a contract.
Yeah.
There's
I don't
a switch.
think he's going to overtake Aaron Jones, but I do think he's going to have a better year than what he's had the last 2 years. He has something to play for, so.
And Aaron Jones is signed through 2024. They do have a potential out in 2023, which I think that's saying this year, not next.
Yeah, that'd be this season.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously. Brain fart there. No, I love that. I think that it's something that I actually just mentioned the other night. When these guys are playing for contracts, it lights that fire. Like there's a few guys that I sometimes hope that they go into the season. I want everybody to get paid, but I sometimes hope they go into the season without that extension because they're going to be hustling. Like look at Josh Jacobs last year. He's the poster for what you're saying. They didn't pick him up for that 5th year. And I think that happened in the offseason, like really short before the season started and went off. So I love that. I love you bringing that in. I am going to go back to Tiff and then we'll go to Jana after this. And it's only because I know Tiff has big love for this guy, Christian Watson. What are we expecting out of you? Got the jersey on, right?
She's wearing the jersey.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to go to you on this one. What are we expecting out of Christian Watson this season?
I expect a lot out of this guy. He really turned on the Jets last season. Did it take him a little while, and was he hurt a little bit? Yeah. I think he didn't have a lot of confidence in himself. The first play out of the gate, he drops that pass that could have been a touchdown. So I think he got knocked down a little bit, but once he figured it out and once Aaron Rodgers finally trusted him, we got to see the real Christian Watson last year. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's his rookie season. It's a fluke. I don't think it's a fluke. I think he is fast as hell. And I think if he beats the corner that's matched up with him, it's over. It's over for anyone. He's unique, man. I think he could possibly become one of the top 5, and I know that's a stretch, but the top 5 wide receivers. I hope he's Green Bay legacy. I really do. There's something about that kid that you just love. And you can tell he loves the game. So I'm excited. I think he's going to do great.
I think he would have had an even bigger rookie season if he dealt with multiple injuries. And you hope that doesn't continue, of course, because if it doesn't and he plays like he did when he did play, I mean, it could be a huge year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I've said, talent-wise, he is one of my favorite players in the NFL. I could see him, like you said, top 5 talent, wide receiver, no question at the end of the season. I could see that 100%. It's just, can Jordan Love do it? Can he get him the ball enough in the space at the right time, at the right moment to make it happen? But he's one of those unique players. We've talked about it. He could do all his damage on 4 or 5 catches a game, go for 89 and 2 touchdowns. Like it happens. It happened multiple times last season.
We saw a little bit of the Jordan Love and Christian Watson connection in that Eagle game, right? I think he went, it was a 63-yard touchdown. That was freaking awesome.
Beautiful.
That's all it takes.
It was beautiful.
That's all it takes with him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's fun.
See.
Janet, we're going to go over to you for the rest of this mishmash receiving options that you guys have. So you got Jaden Reed coming in. You still have Romeo Doubs. And then you bring in 2 rookie receiving tight ends that I have. I love me some Luke Musgrave. Like he is my sweet darling of the rookie draft class. Who do you see anybody emerging this season? Do you have any interest in the rest of these guys for fantasy, or do you think anyone's going to have a good season besides Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers?
Okay, so don't be mad at me, but I have actually never played fantasy.
Oh my
I
goodness,
tried to
Janet.
get her to join my girls' league, and it was like, nope, crickets.
As far as all these rookies coming in, I'm so excited to see Reed. Reed is coming in from Michigan State. They were 13-1. But I'm excited for him. I know he seems to be a powerhouse. When we drafted him, I know a lot of people were cheering, were excited finally for a wide receiver. I feel like I'm excited for all these guys, honestly. I just love football so much. I'm a Wisconsin Badgers fan. So just watching these kids come in, I'm also an emotional bunny when it comes to like these guys coming in from college and they get drafted, and I'm in tears with every single player. I'm like, he did it. Because it's their dream. So I wish nothing but luck for these guys, and anybody who has gotten their jerseys, I hope that because when I got my Cobb jersey, it was right after his debut, right after our home opener, and he did that 108 kickoff yard return for a touchdown. So as soon as I saw, I'm getting goosebumps. As soon as I saw,
I love it.
I love it. So as soon as I saw that, I literally got on my phone and ordered his jersey. So I'm hoping that anybody that, gets these guys' jerseys gets the same luck that I did and gets to wear it for the next 12 years, because they just ended up doing so well on our team. But I'm excited also for these tight ends because they are powerhouses. They're giants coming in. And yeah, I'm just excited for this whole entire. Now, I'm a little disappointed in Dobbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always say Dobbs.
I always say Dobbs.
I'm a little disappointed in him last. And I think it was the hype last season. I think it was the hype. A lot of people were calling him, and I already said how much I love Randall Cobb. So a lot of him were calling him like the next Randall Cobb. So I was expecting so much, kind of like with all of our guys coming in. Like Tiffany said, we expect so much from these guys because we've gotten so much. So I was expecting so much from him, and I just feel like he didn't give me what I wanted. But rookies are never good their first year, or don't expect them to be good their first year. We're not all Justin Jeffersons that are going to be good off the bat. So,
or Christian Watson's.
Yeah. So, my dad was a coach, and he would always tell me, don't get high expectations over these rookies, Janet, because not all rookies are good. And, but I'm still excited for these guys, and I'm excited, they're coming in to a team that has one of the most devoted fan bases in the entire league. We're so obsessed, and to see them coming in, we're just hopeful.
And I mean, devoted, I feel like is an understatement, especially for both of you who are not even in the state of Wisconsin, and you are bleed green and yellow. I did want to say a couple of things on what you had there. Jaden Reed, 55 for 636, 5 touchdowns. He only played 11 of 13 games his senior year.
I'll say this. He was one of my favorite wide receivers coming out of this class. So I did a lot of breakdown on his film and stuff.
Yeah, I think he's going to take the place of Lazard. Lazard was utilized so much as a blocker. This kid will block through the whistle. So I really think that they utilize him in that way on the Green Bay Packers too. We'll see. I don't know that for sure, but he is crazy fast too.
He is. He's good. He's good.
Yeah, and I also really like what you said about Dobbs there. I just think I was curious what the fans were feeling about that, because I must have watched a lot of Green Bay last year, because I remember seeing a couple plays by him and I'm like, oh my gosh, he just went up and got that ball. But then you would always see Aaron Rodgers in interviews after the game shading somebody. It was always mysterious. And I always actually thought it was Christian Watson, because all I ever saw was Dobbs just dominating. And I think it was the other way around. I think he was always shading Dobbs. I still don't know.
I think with Jordan Love, you're going to see a shift, even in the press conference, but also in the game. Aaron Rodgers would not throw to anybody he did not trust, right?
Yeah.
He had to have some sort of trust with them. And if not, he is going to shade you. And I don't think that gives, especially rookies, confidence to go out there and do it over and over again. I think we're going to see a shift with Jordan Love. I hope we do, at least, with him spreading the ball around.
I think we already see a shift, as well as like just the energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not only that, like if you become, I always say it starts in the locker room. It starts in the locker room. If you're it just like every other job that you have, if you don't like someone in the room, it's not going to be a fun experience. And like I said, no shade on Aaron Rodgers. I still love him. I still love him.
I do too. It's hard not to like the guy.
Right. I still love him, but he already had a lot of bad blood in that locker room, and I don't know with who. Oh, well, we know with who, but it was just really bad energy bringing into the locker room. So when you bring that bad energy, and when you have the highest seniority in that room as well,
it's a bad luck.
Yeah, it really is. So just like Tiffany said, it's gonna reflect on the field. So just already we're seeing that shift just on the off season. I could just imagine on the field. It's gonna be so much.
Yeah. There's a brotherhood brewing, and I think the Green Bay Packers posted a TikTok the other day, and I know I'm talking about TikTok, whatever. But
I love this stuff. This is what the Matthew Stafford and the Cooper Cups are made of. This is the investigative work, and I'm not even being like sarcastic. When they started talking about their breakfast club, it's the chemistry.
It is, yeah. So the Green Bay Packers posted a video, and they all went out. It was the offense versus the defense. Did you see this, Janet? Where they all went out to do paintball.
Yes.
Aaron
I was
Rodgers
obsessed.
would never do that. You would never
Not a
catch him
chance.
dead out there.
Not
And
a chance.
Jordan Love was out there doing it.
And
you
they're all
know?
young.
I
So, like,
know.
I think that's also
Like-
a bonding fact. Like, Aaron Rodgers was 40. There's not many, like, he's 40, they're 22, 23, 24. There's not many similarities, right?
Yeah.
There's just differences.
I agree, though. They're all these young guys. And when you think about it, the younger they are, the more they're going to go out there and just play because they're young. They're coming into the NFL. Can I say balls out?
Go ahead.
Balls out.
Balls out.
Yeah.
They're gonna come out like freaking, what is it, backyard bullshit football, like just play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have fun.
so they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. They're gonna come out here and just ball out. There's so many young guys, and you know, as soon as you get that one guy that starts getting everybody rowdy, everybody joins in. All I'm thinking is, like, I go back into the locker room of the Wisconsin Badgers. It's all these young guys routing each other up. I love Aaron Rodgers, but I don't picture him in a huddle jumping with everybody. And, you know, it's just
That's
a
a fair
new
point.
vibe.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
100%.
I know I'm excited to see Jordan Love and some of these receiving weapons. So
Yes, he is.
I am all of them. I told you I'm a Packers fan this season.
As long as it goes to Luke
Come to the
Musgrave.
dark side.
You're gonna be so amped up, though. I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
I love it.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Guys, this was an absolute blast. We really do appreciate both of you coming on here. It's very, very clear, already mentioned in tonight's episode, that you guys love the Green Bay Packers and you bleed green and yellow. But before we let you go, do you guys want to let people know where they can find you and if there's anything you have coming up? So I'll start with you, Janet, and then we'll move to Tiff.
You can find me on Lombardi Sweep every Wednesday. Usually after 6. Sometimes we change the times around depending on games because everyone on Lombardi Sweep is in Wisconsin. So they go around, Bucks games. We go around Brewers games. So I'm usually on there. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram. Please don't go to my TikTok. I just use that for funsies. I just use that to watch videos. I don't use it much. But, yeah, that's pretty much other than that, I really don't have much coming up. But if I do have something coming up, I like to announce it on my Twitter. Twitter is always the first to know.
Awesome.
You can find me on my couch every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, watching Dad Bod Fantasy Squad.
Oh, Tiff.
I got you guys. I'm on like literally everything. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Instagram.
Your TikTok videos are fire.
Yeah, you can come follow me on what?
Your TikTok videos.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on, Tiff.
They're
we do
fire.
have something coming.
We do
up.
have something coming up.
Okay, so first we're going to a Brewers game against the Texans. I'm gonna go see her, and then we are going August 19th, and then we are going to the Saints versus Packers on September 24th. We will be there together.
We will. Oh
That
yeah.
is
September
awesome.
24th in Green Bay.
I'm so excited.
Can't get better than that.
Like all I think about. Like
Me too.
I've already started putting things in my suitcase. Like you're going with me.
I
That
believe
is
you.
awesome.
I have like my little notes app where I put everything that I need to take. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to take this. Oh yeah, I need to take that.
Yeah. I love it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a
Thanks,
blast.
Thanks,
Thank you
Rob.
for inviting me.
Of course.
And Tiffany.
Of
Thank you
course.
I'm always down. I'm yes man. So if you ever ask me again, I'll probably say yes again. So I love
We
I
will
love
make sure to
having
have
you.
both of you on again.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you guys. Thank you for watching our episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
If you aren't already following us on Twitter, check us out at DadBodFS.
We'll be posting all of our best clips and videos to all of our social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on there at Dad Bod Fantasy Squad.
Lastly, if you'd rather just listen, we make sure we post our audio of each episode on all the major streaming platforms. Stick with us all season long so together we can count our trophies and not our calories.